Now, in my physical journal, I left 2 blank pages to further describe my little evening trip with Alina, but the more I think about it, it's nice to commit some moments to memory and to memory alone. So that's where I'll leave this entry. Unfinished, but all the better for it. Hey everyone, I'm Cullan McNamara and welcome to the podcast about my newly published book, Attempting Local. Attempting Local follows my journey as I explore Ireland, surf the waves of the North Atlantic, hike the country's rugged mountains, and travel throughout Europe, all while striving toward a master's degree. It's an extremely honest account of how tough it can be to leave everything behind and move abroad, though it simultaneously demonstrates the beauty of a life of solo travel. If you're a fan of the podcast and want to show your appreciation, send me a message on Instagram at CullanMac. Tell a friend or family member who may be interested to check out the show or the book. If you haven't already, you can buy the paperback at cullanmcnamara.com/attemptinglocal. If you're feeling extra sweet, you can even make a one-time donation to the Attempting Local project right there on that webpage. Lastly, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. No matter how you show your support, just know that it means a lot. Anyway, thanks for being a listener, and now enjoy the show. First of all, welcome to Journal 3, Home. Secondly, I must share this author's note. Regrettably, this third journal was spilled on. I was working an event at the Black Gate and a singer asked if I'd watch her bag. I accepted the charge and placed it on top of mine, the safest spot I could think of. Little did I, or she, know that the lid of her coffee mug wasn't screwed on correctly. Being that the mug was in her bag and that her bag was on top of my own, the contents seeped below to my own belongings. Subsequently, the top edges of the first 24 pages were ruined, ink sadly running in a half-moon shape down the pages. Thankfully, that only means that the top 3 lines or so are indistinguishable. Even greater thanks are owed to the new pens I started using by the 25th page, which are not only fade-proof but are now proven to be liquid-proof. As a result of this slight disaster, I must try and rewrite the missing pieces from context and memory. I won't make each individual damaged section known, but I ask that you forgive any lacking prose or incoherence. I'll try to avoid these shortcomings as best I can, though it's not only difficult to replace what was once written, for I'm also a bit disheartened by the task. Even more so because I believe this third journal contains some of my best writing. Anyway, thanks for allowing this interjection, and thank you for understanding. Episode number 19, Barcelona. Entry number 1. I've just come back from Barcelona and I'm now sitting at the front door with Trevor, Max, Shitich, Claire, and some others. Why are you writing in your diary? Never mind. It's the only way you'll remember, isn't it? Max jests. I'm trying to get details down about the trip before too much time passes, but even I'll admit I'm writing in the wrong moment. Entry number 2, April 12th, 2019, 228 days since moving to Galway. Entry title, Barcelona. Dara and I are in upstairs-downstairs cafe in Clifton. We've completely missed our 11:30 a.m. ferry to the island of 𝗍𝗶𝗱𝗲. Now it's a long, dull wait till 7:30 tonight when the next leaves. My excitement to get back in the studio and record is mounting though. I'll finally have 2 professionally recorded singles. If all goes well, my goal is to get them on Spotify before the year's end. We get 8 hours per day for 2 days, so there's little chance my songs won't get their fair shot at turning out perfectly. The addition of Dara's guitar skills will be a welcome bonus. He adds depth that was greatly lacking my first studio attempt. Furthermore, Philippe will be producing and possibly adding other instruments. If he does, there will be other layers to enjoy and listen to. I'm endlessly thankful I met Philippe. I'm not sure if I mentioned how I met him before. I sat next to this man on a 3-hour bus journey to Dublin Airport and didn't end up speaking to him until the last 30 minutes. I could tell he was struggling with a pair of old wired earbuds. I'd just bought a spare pair which hadn't been used, so I offered them over to the man. He was incredibly gracious, though the gesture was quite small, but it got us talking. I was curious about his accent and he explained he was a musician. He was a big star in Belgium, but he'd moved to Ireland with his wife to live the quiet life on the small island of 𝗍𝗶𝗱𝗲. His wife always loved visiting islands, and now they had a nice home, a space to rent to travelers, and a small recording studio. Little did he know, my friend Dara and I had just started discussing recording some songs earlier that year. It seemed too good to be true, but it wasn't. Now I just have to hope he's as great a producer as he is an incredible guy. Side note, I just ran into a friend of Tara's in this cafe that Dara and I are working in. I had no clue her friend worked here and hadn't seen her in months. Ireland really does feel like the smallest country on earth. I've only been here 8 months and I struggle to make it to the other end of Shop Street in Galway city centre without bumping into someone I've met. It'd be impossible to be anonymous here. I know I need to write about Barcelona, but I don't know where to begin. It's always tough to catch up if I've neglected my journal while at the actual destination. Nonetheless, I fell in love with that city, and I think we stayed just the right amount of time before I could have fallen out of love. Sometimes if you overstay, you can become bored with the city. The flip side of the coin is that I enjoy change too much. But who knows? Maybe that wouldn't have been the case in Spain. Maybe I could have stayed longer. There's always a PhD. Anyway, let's get to it. Barcelona, Day 1, Sunday. We arrived. By we, I mean my classmates Jess, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗵𝗲𝗄, Sierra, and me. Traveling with them was interesting enough. 𝗪𝗵𝗲 and I were at various times annoyed with Dee's and Jess's obsession with their phones, touristy photographs of passports, and all the rest. Sure, we all do it a bit, but they hardly stopped. On the other hand, I was a grumpy old killjoy attempting to get everyone to take their eyes off their screens. The balance could have been better for all involved. Sierra fits somewhere in the middle. She captures her memories then chills. Oh, I forgot 𝗪𝗂. She was there as well and was actually in a state of pure bliss for the entire journey. Her mood had totally changed since we'd left Galway, and it made clear the toll the semester had taken on her. I've never seen anyone smile so much. Honestly, it was beautiful. Most of Sunday was spent settling in and finishing assignments. There was a brief moment of respite though, for Jess and me. She and I went for a stroll through the city, and that stroll lasted hours. We took in Barcelona to the fullest extent. We walked along the boardwalk at the port, scoured the outdoor markets for goods, basked in the scents of tapas floating out from the open-air restaurants, and got lost in the alleys along the way. Before heading back, the two of us sat in a small park tucked between some apartment buildings. It was a tiny square of sand really, with trees around the outside and a fountain in the center. Pigeons squawked at each other for dominance of the fountain, while parakeets crafted intricate forts in the tops of the palm trees. Jess and I realized in that moment that we'd never seen wild parakeets before. We spent some time chatting, connecting, taking in the precious warmth of the sun. It was much needed one-on-one time, and I'm glad we had it. The rest of the day was consumed by the immense stress of assignment submissions. Day 2, Monday. On Monday, we all went on the free walking tour with the hostel. We were yelled at like children to behave and follow instructions that we weren't disobeying. But the situation improved when we arrived at Montjuïc. We met up with another group from a sister hostel, and their guide, who was much more laid back, led the way. I don't think I learned much, but the big fancy building at the bottom of the hill was gorgeous. It had a magic fountain, but it was apparently only operational on the weekends. No magic for us. I bought an old film camera at some point that day. It's an old 𝗪𝗪𝗧, which I purchased with a lens and film for only €130 at a wonderful shop called 𝗪𝗪𝗏𝗄𝗏. I'd highly recommend checking it out if you get to spend some time in Barcelona, and if you're a photography enthusiast, of course. I spent much of the day attempting to figure out how to use the old device. I'd never worked with film before, but it reignited my passion for using a camera. Photography was fun again. I'm hoping this will help cure the massive photo fatigue I've been having. I'm tired of owning thousands of seemingly useless pics. I have to be more purposeful with my shots, more caring with the composition. With film, there's less room for error, but much more room for possibilities. And if this thing actually even works, these black and white photos should look stunning. We hiked all the way up to Castel de Montjuïc, which was interesting enough, but it wasn't informational and provided a similar view of the city as other free spots. My tip, skip it. Two guys from the sister hostel showed us an amazing, and more importantly cheap, tapas place that I never got the name of. The 8 of us feasted, then we went home. The rest of my group still had assignments to complete, and I don't even remember what I did for the rest of the day. This is why I have to keep a journal. Wait, never mind. Like a detective, I went back through my messages and I saw the ones I'd sent to Trevor. He was meeting us in Barcelona later that night. I told him when he could expect us back and that he may beat us to the hostel. The rest of us were going to a concert hall to see a show. Sierra's parents bought the tickets. It was their treat for her recent birthday, and we were included. We listened to orchestral versions of pop songs and movie soundtracks, performed by a band composed only of women. They were wonderfully talented. My personal favorite was the Schindler's List theme. Their rendition was painfully beautiful. We returned to the hostel to find Trevor distraught. He'd left his passport, travel documents, and credit cards in the taxi. The taxi left, and Trev had no clue how to contact the driver. All we could do was wait and hope for the best. Day 3, Tuesday. The morning was spent trying to sort out Trevor's issue. We concluded he'd have to stay in Barcelona forever and assume a new identity. His new name would be Victor. We were walking out to go to the American consulate when the taxi driver stepped through the door with all of Trev's belongings. I can't explain in this short entry the relief my friend felt at that moment. Everyone in the hostel cheered. Trevor and I then left for 𝗨𝗏𝗄𝗄, a monument to God, which has been under construction since 1882. Antoni Gaudí may not have started the project, but it was his vision that impacted it the most. The church is unlike any other I've ever seen, and it should be finished within the next 10 years, after nearly 150 years of painstaking work, loads of faith, and, obviously, plenty of money. If there's one thing I learned while in Spain, it's that Gaudí, the architect and genius, designed everything of relevance. If you go to Barcelona, 𝗨𝗏𝗄𝗄 and other Gaudí works are an absolute must-see. Day 4, Wednesday. I woke up to at least 17 of the alarms set by 𝗪𝗂. I was so pissed that I honestly considered throwing her phone off the balcony. Once I realized why she'd set them, I eased up. She was traveling to Montserrat. I had no clue what that meant, but I was sold after she showed me a single photo of the place. She was traveling alone, so I asked if I could tag along. Within 30 minutes, 𝗪𝗂 and I were walking out the door and headed toward the mountainside monastery of Montserrat. We slept for the better part of the bus journey, but I managed to snap a few stills along the way. Upon arrival, I understood exactly why 𝗪𝗂 had to ensure she'd wake up on time. Montserrat is gorgeous. The temple is nestled on the side of the mountain, with a small village flowing out from it. To the left is a valley carved out by a river that has mountains flanking the other side. Apart from us, the tourists, it was the image of serenity. The sun battled waves of puffy, outstandingly detailed clouds in its effort to warm us. Our tour guide spoke of the shops and discounts as we wondered about the history and the art. All in all, 𝗪𝗂 and I were grateful to be there instead of oversleeping in the hostel. I could go on for days about this place, but I should continue. To the hostel we went. 𝗪𝗂 opted for a nap. I opted to sit in the common area, and I couldn't be happier that I did. One of my favorite memories of the trip ensued. Baptiste, one of the French employees of the hostel, informed me that the European Commission was releasing the first ever photograph of a black hole. Composed of absurd amounts of data, a picture was crafted together, and it depicted the phenomenon that lies 500 million trillion kilometers from Earth, or so I remember hearing. There was a round black emptiness at its core, and a bright orange ring around it. The event horizon looked like a ring of fire, the lower half at the greatest intensity, the top barely visible in terms of color or light. Apparently that's because the black hole or the matter around it is rotating clockwise. I don't exactly know what all that explains, but I was too bewildered to care. The unveiling was incredible to witness, and will be cemented as an important moment in human history. Secondly, I spent time with Alina. She is also a volunteer at the hostel, though she's from Russia. We chatted here and there over the days, but we were about to go on an adventure together. I mentioned I wanted to try and develop my film. She wanted to buy another film camera. Amazingly enough, she'd broken 4 in the last year. I asked if she wanted to join me on my walk. She did, so we departed together toward Casanova Photo. Now in my physical journal, I left 2 blank pages to further describe my little evening trip with Alina. But the more I think about it, it's nice to commit some moments to memory, and to memory alone. So that's where I'll leave this entry. Unfinished, but all the better for it. On the next episode of Attempting Local, we explore the small island of 𝗍𝗏𝗏 and experience what it's like to record in a little music studio off the coast of Ireland. Alright, if you've made it to the end of this episode, then I definitely know you appreciate listening to my story. Showing that appreciation is really simple, and it seriously helps the show grow and reach more listeners. You already heard the spiel at the beginning, so you know how you can help. It amazes me that this podcast is reaching people from all over the world. So feel free to reach out wherever you are and share your thoughts on this piece of work, or just to chat. Shoot me a message at Cullan Mac or at Attempting Local Podcast on Instagram. I absolutely love hearing from you. Thank you again, and enjoy listening to Attempting Local, a year abroad in Galway, Ireland.